Alright, so I'll just get a little warm-up done. Today, my plan is to train legs and arms. At the moment, because I'm recovering from this injury, kind of like focusing on, let's say, rebuilding my base strength. So making sure all key movements very strong and very stable more than anything. Things like stable in the bottom of a bench press, stable in the bottom of a squat. Making sure pulling movements I'm initiating with a shoulder blade movement rather than a pulling with my arms. Just like the key fundamentals of training. So I really only have two workouts. I have a chest, shoulders, back workout. I have an arm and a leg workout. Like arms and legs together. So that's basically the system right now. The day one will be chest, back and shoulders. Day two will be legs and arms. Day three off. And then day four repeat. And they'll be pretty much, the same workouts, although I'll have two slight variations so that the second time I go through that, the exercise emphasis, maybe the order of exercises will change a little bit. Like for example, today I'll start more with hamstring work and finish with some quad work, and then on the other, the next time through the rotation I'll start more with quad work and finish with hamstring work. And you hear lots of, different theories about what's better. John Meadows was a big fan of starting your leg workouts with hamstring work because you put a lot of blood into the hamstrings and glutes, and it makes you more stable in the in a squat or a hack squat or a leg press position, which I think is true. But then at the same time, I think whatever you put first is going to get the biggest, the best benefit because you're fresh. You can, basically put your maximum effort into that. So I think that's always, the most simplest thing to follow. And it happens to be that most people need more hamstring work than quad work anyway. So starting hamstrings for your leg workouts is probably a good idea for most people most of the time. Like for the average person, I would say it'd be like 2 times out of 3 you'd start with hamstrings, and the third one start with quads. I'm probably an outlier where my hamstring development is better than my quad development, so I probably don't want to do that as often. I definitely want to have more workouts where I have quads first, so I can put my effort and attention on that. The problem with me at the moment is that quad movements are the movements which I'm really having a hard time with, and workout to workout it's hit and miss. So even a leg extension, if you have a you have a herniated L4, L5, L5, S1 disc, and any sort of sciatic pain, that position where you're sitting and extending your legs can often aggravate this, sciatic pain and, basically the nerve impingement through those discs. So having a hard time with that, and I'm having a hard time stabilizing my pelvis in the bottom positions of squats and deadlifts. And deadlifts actually not so much, but definitely squats, hack squats, leg press, lunges, split squats. So they're all your main quad movements, right? So it's really like when I come to workouts where I'm training quads, it's at the moment it's like see how I go. Sometimes I have great workouts. And other times something is like kind of getting in the way. And what I'm kind of learning as I go on with this injury is that if I push, when I'm having a hard time of it, if I push through it, I make it significantly worse then for another 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, so it's really not worth it. So if I just aren't feeling it that day, I would just, cut the workout a bit short, rather than to aggravate it and prolong this recovery time. It's already long enough as it is. It's been almost, it's been bothering me for a year and a half, but it's been bad for the last 12 months. So, and it's not to say that I've been working diligently on it. There was a period of time where I was just I'll rest it, it'll get better. And then when it didn't, that's when I started to be more, proactive about it. So that's today. It'll be start with some hamstrings, adductors, and then see what we can do for quads. Maybe a single leg press, maybe a lunge. Also, I'm tending to do more unilateral work for my legs at the moment, simply because I have this nerve impingement on the left side, and I catch myself, favoring the right side when I'm doing any bilateral movements, especially as it starts to get harder, right? So if you start to do harder sets, I tend to shift the pressure to my right side more, which, in the long run, it's only going to create more imbalance. So for now, it's kind of as much unilateral stuff as possible. And if I do bilateral anything, like a leg press or a hack squat, it's definitely nowhere near my max or failure point or anything like that. And then I'll finish off with some arms. And arms, I'll probably just do 2 exercises for biceps, 2 exercises for triceps. 2 or 3 sets of each exercise. So maybe it'll be 6 sets for biceps and 6 sets for triceps, and that'll be enough. It's not really, this phase of training is not really to try to build as much muscle as humanly possible. It's really just to, like I said, reset everything. I call it building a base. And what injuries aside over the years, what I found is that whatever, we all have a weak link in the chain somewhere. And let's say, for example, you have one of your shoulders is unstable at the top of a press, and you end up finishing your presses on the hard sets with this sort of push forward of the shoulder, this protraction of the shoulder. You'll be able to get a certain distance training hard, even if you're doing that for the last rep or two on your really hard sets. But that's probably the thing that's going to stop you progressing at a certain point. So, every so often kind of resetting everything and trying to address whatever that issue is. Maybe that's weak rhomboids, or, your serratus isn't working the way it's supposed to, or whatever it happens to be. Some inhibition of one muscle because another muscle is tight, or just bad habit and bad movement pattern over years. It could be lots of different things. Right? So try to address that, and you'll find that if you can, make some inroads in fixing that, as you build back up to your maximum weights again, you'll find you'll be able to push past that plateau that you previously had there. So I think when you have an injury, I think it's super important. Or recovering from an injury, because as we have injuries, it's you develop certain movement patterns to go around the pain point of whatever that injury is. So in that case, that's kind of where I am at the moment. It's super important. But even injuries aside, I think couple of times a year to do that is never going to hurt you. It's only going to help you. And really, like if you take a really honest look at the gym that you're in, you look around at the people who are there training week in, week out for years and years on end and never changing. Now, some of those people are just, they're not really training hard, or they don't have any, structured nutrition to back their training up and supplements. But some of those people are really trying hard. Some of those people are like, coming into the gym and they really want to make progress. But they get to this sticking point where they have some limitation in the strength or stability of a certain joint or a certain movement. And rather than, taking a step back and trying to address that, they just push through it and go harder, because obviously they're not going hard enough. So, I think if you really take a good look at your own training, especially if you've made some amount of progress, we often have this belief that, and you hear people say it all the time online, and I used to say it myself too, that you make this very small amount of progress every week, and if you can do that consistently for 2 years, you've made huge progress. And I think it is true. That is how it works when it comes to body fat reduction. You make a little bit of progress every week, and you stack that up week on week, month on month, and all of a sudden, you've dramatically changed the aesthetics of your body, and reduced the amount of body fat you have. But I haven't really found that to be true when it comes to building muscle, either for myself or with clients, or just observing the way that people actually make progress. If you really look, most people, when it comes to building muscle, they tend to make quite a bit of progress over a short period of time, or short periods of time, followed by extended periods of not much happening. So it's kind of it's not this kind of linear, slow up. It's kind of and then nothing for a while, and then boom, and then nothing for a while. And you tend to, that's in my experience anyway. That's really what I've observed in other people too. So I think we're often afraid to try to reduce the weight, work on some weak link movement patterns and fix these biomechanics, because we're afraid that we've been going so hard and we're just holding on to what we have, where realistically it's kind of most people aren't going anywhere anyway. Most people are just staying exactly where they are. So to back off the weight, really improve your ability to contract the muscle and stimulate the muscle. You're never going to lose any muscle doing that. And worst case scenario, if you're someone who's been training for many years, and the last 2 years you've made little to no progress, worst case scenario is you're just going to make no progress from it. So I think it's definitely worth trying. Okay, so for me at the moment, one of the most important things I need to do is make sure I'm warming up properly and getting good mobility, especially through my spine. So this last week I had some exosome injections into my lumbar spine because I have this two herniated discs in L4, L5 and L5S1. So what typically happens then is, when you have an issue like this, is it's not just that area that ends up becoming tight and immobile, but it ends up becoming, your body locks up the surrounding areas as well. So although my lumbar spine starts to lose some mobility, the other thing that happens is my thoracic spine starts to lose mobility. And if your thoracic spine starts to lose some mobility, you're at a much bigger risk of injuring your shoulder as well. So, something that's like hugely important for me at the moment is my little warm-up routine that I go through to get some blood flow and get some mobility through all these areas, to make sure that then when I do go and train, I'm not causing further injury to myself, which, realistically is what's happened a little bit over the last year, when I've become a little bit slack with warming up at times. And it's like a catch-22, isn't it? Like, you tend to do more mobility work and stretching and things when you're feeling like you have an injury or a kind of like a weakness in a certain area, or a vulnerability, let's say, in a certain area. And then as you start to feel better, you inevitably slack off on that a little bit. So, it's one of those things that I guess we all know we should warm up more. Probably most people should warm up more than they do. And I guess it's just so I guess we all know that we should probably, well, most people know that they should warm up more than they do, rather than getting directly into a workout. But I guess it's one of those things that we only tend to do it, very regularly when we have injuries. So for me, this sequence is probably the most important thing for me at the moment. Is I have to not force, but encourage my lumbar spine to regain some mobility. Without it aggravating any of the injury itself. So, anyone who's had a lumbar spine herniation, especially in this area, L4, L5, L5S1, often gets like sciatic pain. So, as I'm going through these kind of like different positions, I'm trying to gently push it without it giving me any of those sciatic symptoms. And really, like for the repair and regeneration of the disc, if the vertebrae become locked and they don't move, then you don't get that fluid transfer in and out of the disc as you should, which then slows down the healing process. And realistically, most people, even if you don't have any symptoms of any sort of disc herniation, most people that train hard, if you were to go and get an MRI of your entire spine, most people would probably find several disc herniations. And most of the time they're, small enough or insignificant enough to not really cause an issue, and most of the time they just sort of heal themselves. It's only when we end up having a significant sort of a injury to it that we actually feel that it's there. And just out of interest, when I was having these when I first started having these issues, obviously I was only having really issues in my lumbar spine and my lower back. But I decided to do an MRI of my entire spine just to see, because I also actually had like a little kind of pinching thing going on in between my shoulder blades that I couldn't, kind of get rid of. And I ended up having a total, I think it was like 9 disc herniations, all up and down my spine. Now the 2 in the lumbar spine were, quite large. And I had one around C7, C5, C6, C7, something around there in my neck, which was moderate, but enough to be causing that issue between my shoulder blades. And the others were so small that they were like not really causing me any issues. So, it seems to be the case that we will probably all have some amount of disc herniations from, hard training and lifting heavy and things that we don't even realize most of the time. So this movement here is probably the area, this internal hip rotation. It's probably the area I've lost the majority of it, the biggest range of motion discrepancy, let's say, from this injury. And I find that as I work to improve this is probably the thing that's alleviating the discomfort more than anything else, is regaining this kind of like internal rotation. And you can see, like, when I first started, I was really stuck up here, and after a few reps I can kind of like move into this position much more freely. And you'll see on the other side is much worse, because the left side is really where I have the majority of the issue. The right side's not really so bad. So I find this left side it's really resistant to move into that range, but slowly it's improving, and as it improves, I definitely feel much better through my lower back and my hip, especially. So, like I was saying before, like ankle to neck, head to toe, I find with the lower back, the more blood flow, the more mobility you get in every joint, the more pressure tends to alleviate the lower back. So especially today, I'm training some legs. I really want to get some good blood flow in my calves first, then move up to like hamstrings and adductors, and then see what we can do for quads at the end. Most of my leg stuff at the moment, I will at least start with unilateral. So this foot here is just support, really, and support so that I don't find my way around the hard part of the movement. I use a little bit of support if I need to. Here I get a sticking point, so I can work right through the middle of that, rather than, you see people all the time on calf raises like doing all these kind of weird movements to get around the hard part, but really like the goal is going right through the middle of that hard part. So these first couple of sets, I literally have no weight on the machine. I'm just trying to find a good range of motion, get a good feeling in the calf, get some blood flow in there. And actually, I think, training calves before you train legs is always a good idea anyway, regardless of the injury side of things, because, it's the age-old discussion about calves, isn't it? Everyone is always saying like, oh, calves are genetics, but then people go and do 4 sets of squats, 4 sets of leg press, 4 sets of leg extensions, maybe some couple of sets of leg curls, and then whatever else, back extension, Romanian deadlift, whatever. And then do 2 or 3 sets of calves at the end, and do that once a week or maybe even twice a week. And then say things like, my calves just don't grow, or no matter what I do, my calves don't grow. Well, if you go through all that leg workout, and then you're trying to, put effort into the sets to grow your calves, the chances that you're going to make much of an inroad there is pretty minimal. Because all that work that you did in the beginning, by the time you get to calves, then you're tired, right? And you can't put in the same effort. Whereas I could train 6, 7, 8, 10 sets of calves now, smash them, and really do a lot of work there, and really have zero negative impact on my leg workout afterwards. Whereas the opposite is not necessarily true, right? If you kill yourself with legs, then try to train calves, you're tired. If you kill yourself with calves, then you go to train legs, you'll be fine for legs. So. And that's the other thing that I find that the mistake a lot of people make with calves, and I know I did for a long time too, is trying to go too heavy on them too often and really not getting a big contraction. It's pretty easy to go onto a calf raise, throw the whole stack on and bounce up and down. But, it's like, calf is the same as any other muscle. You need a quality contraction. And if you're only getting like a 1 inch or half an inch, 1 centimeter movement up and down, the chances that you're going to really stimulate much as far as muscle growth from that is probably pretty minimal. So I find really reducing the weight down and getting great contractions is really key to growing some big old calves. The other thing people neglect is they often neglect to train this, tibialis anterior in the front, and that's like a whole separate muscle group. So it's like the opposite of calf raising, right? So you need to dorsiflex or draw your toes up as hard as you can, and then that's when you hit that muscle in the front. And then when that muscle is developed, the way it makes your calves look is, although it's a small muscle, it dramatically changes the visual look of your calves. So once I've done, 3 or 4 sets of calf work, I will start to do, some more tibialis anterior work, which I'll then superset with some kind of like higher rep stuff for calves. And try to just pump as much blood in there as possible, really. Another big mistake people make with calves is that they let the weight shift to the outside of their foot. And really, you want to keep the pressure onto your big toe. You get a really good contraction in your calf and you don't put a lot of stress through your ankle. Okay, that's pretty fine. So my leg workouts at the moment are pretty systematic. I just, start with my calves. Normally move up to hamstring, but the single hamstring curl that I like is taken right now, so I'll just go to adductors because I'm very limited with what I can do with any sort of pressing or squatting right now. And anything that I do, I really need to get a lot of good blood flow into hamstrings, glutes, adductors particularly before I really do anything there. Also, I find like these exercises, especially this adductor, it's almost like more of a ab workout than anything else. Not from a contracting point of view, but from a bracing point of view, because I find that I've lost, control of this ab bracing in this position here, and really focusing on that helping me to regain it. And I think what's ironic is that the more I kind of concentrate on keeping these lower abs engaged as I complete movements, actually I'm feeling things in exercises I've never felt before, especially on like a leg press. You know, when you get to the top of a leg press, we often, like kind of like relax a little bit. And if you work at the top of a leg press to really keep your lower abs engaged and finish the movement, that hip extension, like with the musculature that you have rather than the position of your joints, you like feel your quads in a way that you've never felt before. So in this position here, if I keep my lower abs like really tight, I can only get to here. If I let them go, I can easily push it through. But to use the muscle and keep my pelvis in the same position, I can't do any more reps. So most of my training right now is really very methodical. I'm really focusing on the quality of the contraction rather than trying to shift weight. For two reasons. One, because I really can't shift a lot of weight without, putting my lower back in a compromised position. And two, it's just good to do that every now and then, like a couple of times a year, strip back the amount of weight that you're doing and really concentrate on like the execution of the movements that you're doing. Because I think we're all guilty of it. You look at the how far down the pin is on the stack, how many plates you have on the machine, and you start to lose the quality of the movement by 2%, and then the next month another 2%, and then you do that over a year or 2 year period of time. All of a sudden you're shifting heavy weights around, but maybe not necessarily with the ideal form. And how can you, it's very hard to say how much of a slip in form is acceptable as far as stimulating the muscle goes. So yeah, I find it's always been beneficial for me for building more muscle. About twice a year, stripping the weight back, focusing on the quality of the contraction, and then slowly building back up again. And every time I've done that, it's had a positive outcome on the amount of muscle that I've built. So right now, everything is pretty slow, methodical. Core is engaged, and trying to really contract, peak contraction at the top, and trying not to lose the tension at any point in the movement. And really, I'm not going anywhere close to failure, really. Well, it's somewhat failure. It's failure with this like ultra strict technique. But really, I have like quite a bit left in the tank. But what I'm trying to say is I'm not trying to squeeze every last bit out of every muscle as I'm training at the moment. I want to stimulate, nail the form. Week on week, I want to see, the amount that I'm lifting with this good form increase, obviously. Which brings up an interesting topic, like, everyone talks about this, like, progressive overload as being the key. You have to lift more every week, which, like, to a certain degree is true, but I don't think the way I look at it is that you have to work hard in this session now so that when I come back to this session, the weights that are challenging for me now aren't as challenging anymore. It's not like, I can just force myself to put on extra weight in this session. It's like the work that I do in this session will allow me to lift a heavier weight next time and have it be, at a relatively same intensity or same effort that I need. Let's say if I have, 50 kilos here and I can do 8 reps, then next time 50 kilos for 8 should feel like, oh, that was kind of like pretty easy, or not necessarily easy, but like I can do it comfortably. So then I can go to 55. So it's not like I look at, my numbers that I did last week and said, okay, I did 50 last week, I have to do 55 this week. I think if you approach things that way, you'll end up, bastardizing the movements and injuring yourself. It's more like I do 50 this week and I come back to 50 next week and it's no easier and I still have the same struggle and the same amount of reps. Then there's something has been wrong. Either I didn't push it hard enough in the previous session, or maybe I could have done 9 reps or whatever it happened to be. Or maybe there was something wrong with my recovery in between sessions. I've done too many workouts I haven't been able to recover from them. Has my nutrition not been on point? Have I missed sleep? There's something that's happened wrong. That I get back to the same workout next time and I'm not able to add more weight, rather than trying to force myself to do more weight, which is when you're young and you're getting started, you can do that for a while. But if you try to do that for 20 years, you will certainly hit roadblocks when you injure yourself trying to do that. So in one rep there, I felt I'd lost control of my core, and then I felt like a little, my lower back wanted to guard that injury. So this is why I have 30 kilos on. So I'm not going to do any serious damage with that, but most of the time, if I didn't have this injury, I could probably comfortably do the whole stack here for 10 reps or something. And if I tried to do that and lost control of my core with a heavy weight, then I'm looking at re-aggravating the injury, right? So this set, I have to make it perfect. That was a little heavy. Again, it's like something I can hoist it, but you know, to keep my core engaged. Keep my core engaged and work through it. It's another story. Yeah. Overzealous. So that's about it for hamstrings. I think I'll do some split squats. So I tried to do a couple of sets of split squats to warm up, and I was just really not feeling good on my lower back. And that's the biggest struggle for me at the moment is any quad movements, any sort of pressing, squatting, lunging movements with my left leg forward, which is the side that I'm having, the compressed nerve on. I just can't stabilize my hip. So it's one of those things where it's like, leave it for today and, live to fight another day rather than to push through and aggravate it further, which I've done for sure in the past. But, I'm trying to be smarter. So that's legs done. We'll do a few sets of arms and then that'll be us done. Yeah, it's better.
Where do you think house? Like this?
When I do isolation stuff arms, I don't tend to go very heavy on it. I have in the past, and all that seemed to happen is just like, you know, tendonitis through my elbows especially. Not saying that doing a heavy curl, for example, isn't beneficial or won't stimulate muscle growth, but the way I look at it is if I, you know, not necessarily do a major injury, but I tweak my elbow, you know, from doing heavy curls, and then I can't train them hard for 2 or 3 weeks or a month or 2 months, or, you know, some people have these niggling elbow injuries their entire life. And it really stops them being able to train properly and stimulate the muscle. So I find with arms you can still get a lot of growth from doing lighter stuff, you know, focusing on the contraction, moving a little bit faster between sets, doing some supersets. You know, like in this position here, this is a very shortened position of the tricep, and then this position here is kind of like, it's not a fully stretched position, but it's more like a, you know, I would call this like mid-range, and this is a somewhat of a stretch. So you tend to find you're going to fatigue in that shortened, contracted position first, but then you can come back here and do some more reps. So, you know, you can extend the set that way and challenge the muscle in a different way, rather than just, you know, nailing heavy weight all the time. Because you have to be able to train hard consistently for a long period of time. There's no point in being able to go gung-ho for 2, 3, 4 months, 6 months even, and then having to train around niggling injuries for, you know, the next year. Yeah. if I was ever going to do a heavy curl, it would not be a preacher curl, either a barbell or a dumbbell preacher curl. It just seems to be an exercise a lot of people tear their bicep, right? Down at that insertion and doing heavy preacher curls. So, I really never go too heavy on that. I think there's benefit in working on the other end of the range there. In this position here, this is a shorter position of the bicep, so really concentrating more of the effort on shortening the bicep rather than lengthening it under load on that bench. It just seems to be a very precarious position to put yourself in. A lot of people come and suffer that. Yeah, I have one more set. And I really like this short bar too for biceps because, a lot of people do bicep curls like this with their elbows sticking out. And really biomechanically, the bicep is having a really hard time exerting force in this position. But if your wrists and elbow and shoulder all stay in alignment, the bicep is going to be able to contract much harder, and you're not going to put any stress in through your shoulder or through your elbows from doing this sort of thing. And I find a lot of people, because they don't work on that mobility, that external rotation, because they're stuck in this internal rotation, they can't get into this position. This short bar kind of forces you to get into that position. And look, if you can't do it, I would prefer to do. And there's times where I get, especially when my weight goes up, I can't get that same mobility, that internal or external rotation. So you're much better off to do one arm at a time and stay in alignment than to be here, doing this sort of thing. If you're going to do two arms at the same time, you have to keep these elbows nice and straight so that the bicep can actually do the work. I think realistically you could probably get away without doing isolated tricep work. I think you probably get most of your tricep development really from heavy pressing, especially if you're doing dips. I find that nails the triceps more than anything. Heavy bench press, close grip bench press. Shoulder press not so much, but still, somewhat. But that's probably where you're getting the bulk of your tricep size from. I think the benefit is to more joint function. Being able to control your shoulder and your elbow in different ranges. Biceps, I definitely think you need to do direct work. I don't buy into the whole back training to build biceps that much. Maybe if you're doing like supinated pull downs or pull-ups. But outside of that, I don't think your biceps are really getting a huge amount of work from back training. All right, that'll do it.